In the heart of the kingdom, England's cities hold dark secrets. Beneath ancient castles and shadowed streets, restless spirits roam, and the past never truly fades. Are you ready to uncover the 15 most haunted cities? 1. Edinburgh. Edinburgh, a city of breathtaking beauty and ancient grandeur, hides a dark truth beneath its majestic exterior. As midnight strikes, the city's streets fall into an unnatural silence, with only the whisper of the wind against stone to break the stillness. It is said that the souls of long-forgotten battles, their restless spirits, forever bound to the land, still walk among the living, particularly around the towering presence of a castle that watches over the city from its perch high above. Locals speak in hushed, fearful tones of shadowy figures drifting through the narrow, twisting alleys of the old town. Soldiers in medieval armor, their eyes hollow, eternally trapped in the blood-stained ground they once fought upon. Others speak of footsteps that echo in the dark, only to turn and find no one behind them. Yet the air grows heavy with a presence that won't let go. But it's not just the castle that hides Edinburgh's past. Beneath the city lies a labyrinth of forgotten vaults, their cold stone walls bearing the weight of secrets long buried. Once used to store the city's treasures, these vaults became the refuge of the destitute and the lost, many of whom disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Today, those brave enough to enter these forgotten chambers at night feel the weight of an unseen dread, an icy hand pressing against their chest, and the chilling certainty that something or someone is watching. Some even claim to have seen figures emerge from the shadows, their eyes burning with a hunger that has spanned centuries. Edinburgh's beauty comes at a price paid in the currency of restless souls that refuse to leave, lurking just beneath every cobblestone, every corner, every whisper of wind. 2. York. York is a city draped in history, but it also bears a chilling past, one that many try to forget, though they are unable to escape it. The ancient walls, which once defended the city, now seem to trap the restless souls of those who met their tragic end within these very confines. On stormy nights, you can hear the echo of chains rattling through the streets, a reminder of the prisoners who were once held here before their fates were sealed. Walking down the dimly lit streets, especially near the Shambles, an iconic medieval street, you might feel as though you're not alone. The faintest sensation of cold breath on your neck, the soft shuffle of footsteps that seem to follow you, but no one is there when you turn. Those familiar with York's haunted history claim that the city's ancient structures are infused with the energy of the past, the ghosts of those who perished in the infamous fires of the 19th century, the murder victims whose bodies were never found, and the countless souls of plague victims still walk among the living. The York Ghost Walks have become notorious for attracting the bravest of tourists, with some returning home in a state of shock, their faces pale, eyes wide in terror. They speak of shadowy figures lurking just out of sight, cold hands brushing against theirs in the dark, and voices whispering their names when no one else is around. But what truly chills the bones of locals is the spectral figure of a woman in a white dress seen near the York Minster. Her mournful wail can still be heard on the wind, crying out for her lost lover who was executed centuries ago. Many claim they have seen her standing at the church's grand entrance, her silhouette faint but undeniably there, as if waiting for a reunion that will never come. 3. Glasgow. Glasgow, once a thriving industrial city, now hides a darker side beneath its vibrant culture. The winding streets and alleys of this bustling city are home to more than just the echoes of music and laughter. At night, when the crowds disperse and the pubs close, the city's oldest districts come alive with the presence of spirits that refuse to move on. In the shadows of the Victorian buildings, ghostly figures can be spotted, their outlines indistinct, but their presence undeniable. The ghosts of former miners, factory workers, and even notorious criminals from Glasgow's past are said to roam the streets. In particular, the area surrounding the old warehouses and factories is notorious for its paranormal activity. The sounds of chains dragging across the pavement and the flickering of streetlights have often been attributed to the souls trapped in the city's industrial past. One of the most infamous locations is the Trongate area, where numerous tales of hauntings have been told. Visitors often report strange occurrences: cold spots, lights flickering in abandoned buildings, and a deep sense of unease. There are whispers of a spectral figure that haunts the old lanes, a former worker who died under mysterious circumstances and whose spirit still roams in search of closure. Some claim to have seen his shadow passing through the alleyways, his mournful face contorted in sorrow. Even the city's rich artistic history is tainted with ghostly legends. Some claim to have encountered the ghost of a famous painter who committed suicide in his studio, his brush still moving in the shadows, painting his grief for eternity. As if trapped in a loop, his figure reappears each night, painting the same heart-wrenching scene over and over again, driven by an eternal sorrow. 4. Chester. Chester, with its cobblestone streets and Roman walls, seems like a quiet, picturesque city at first glance. But as the fog rolls in and the sun sinks below the horizon, Chester takes on a different character, one that is ancient and unsettling. The city's Roman past is the source of its most haunting stories, with many believing that the souls of Roman soldiers still march along the old roads, keeping watch over the city. At night, the eerily silent streets are said to come alive with the sound of heavy boots. Those walking the ancient streets often report hearing the unmistakable clang of armor and the rhythmic thud of boots following them, only to turn and find no one there. The haunting presence of these long-dead soldiers is not the only thing that lingers in Chester. The ghost of a woman, believed to have been a victim of a brutal murder, is said to wander the city, her cries echoing through the night. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Chester is the ancient Roman amphitheater. Visitors to this historic site claim to feel a sudden chill as they approach the ruins. Some have even seen shadowy figures in the stands, their eyes watching from the darkness, as if waiting for something or someone. Others have felt a violent tug at their clothes or their hair, as if something unseen is trying to pull them back into the past. The amphitheater, with its aged stones, is believed to hold the echoes of a long-forgotten battle. Some say that when the moon is full, the sounds of swords clashing and battle cries rise from the arena as the spirits of fallen gladiators reenact their final moments. 5. Oxford. Oxford is a city synonymous with learning, but beneath its prestigious academic institutions lies a far darker history. The spires of Oxford's colleges and the hallowed halls of its libraries are home to more than just the knowledge of the ages. They also hold the restless spirits of scholars, monks, and students who never left. The ancient colleges, some dating back to the 13th century, have seen their fair share of tragedy, and many of these tales are whispered only after dark. Among the most infamous locations is the Bodleian Library, one of the oldest libraries in Europe. It's said that the spirits of scholars who once studied here still haunt the halls, poring over dusty manuscripts and books long forgotten. Visitors report the eerie sensation of being watched while in the library's ancient reading rooms. Some claim to have heard faint whispers in the air. Others feel a cold breath brushing against their skin when no one else is around. But it's not just the libraries that are haunted. The historic colleges, with their towering spires and ivy-clad walls, are home to numerous ghostly apparitions. Most notably, the ghost of a student who died tragically on the grounds of one of the colleges is said to walk the paths under the moonlight, searching for something, perhaps an answer to the questions that kept him awake in life. His footsteps can sometimes be heard, soft and deliberate, as if walking beside those brave enough to tread the same path. In one of the older buildings, a professor is said to have perished under mysterious circumstances, his spirit forever seeking to finish the research he started, pacing the halls at night, his footsteps echoing through the corridors. 6. Brighton. Brighton, a bustling coastal city known for its lively atmosphere, hides an eerie undercurrent beneath its vibrant facade. The famous Brighton Pier, once a bustling place of amusement and laughter, now stands in haunting solitude once the crowds leave. As the fog rolls in off the sea, the pier transforms into a shadow of its former self. Those who wander its creaky wooden boards late at night often speak of an overwhelming feeling of dread, as if eyes are watching them from the darkened corners. But when they turn, no one is there. It is said that the spirits of long-dead sailors still linger, drawn back to the place where they once found joy. The Royal Pavilion, an opulent royal residence, hides a particularly chilling secret. Whispers among the locals claim to have seen the ghostly figure of King George IV himself, wandering the palace's grand halls, his melancholic sighs drifting through the air. His royal robes, faded with time, seem to billow as he roams in search of a past he can never return to. But it's not just the palatial grandeur that harbors spirits. Brighton's labyrinthine streets, tucked away behind the bright lights and arcades, carry the spirits of those whose lives ended tragically. There are tales of women who vanished without a trace, their souls forever searching for answers. Their soft cries are said to be carried on the evening breeze, causing an unsettling chill in the air. One particularly haunting encounter happened just outside the pavilion, where a visitor swore they saw a phantom figure of a young woman dressed in tattered clothing, lost in a trance. She seemed to beckon them closer, but when they approached, she vanished into the mist, leaving nothing but an unexplainable sense of despair. 7. Liverpool. Liverpool, a vibrant city known for its musical legacy, especially the Beatles, hides darker, more sinister secrets beneath its lively streets. The famous docks, once a hub of activity, are now silent, but the ghosts of those who lost their lives in the treacherous waters still linger. The cries of sailors who perished in violent storms still echo over the water, carried by the wind at night. On certain evenings, shadows move along the waterfront, figures of men in old-fashioned clothing, still waiting for ships that will never arrive. The old warehouses and buildings of Albert Dock are the most haunted spots in the city. Tourists walking through these historic buildings report feeling an unsettling cold, followed by an overwhelming sense of being followed. Some claim to have seen a figure dressed in Victorian clothing, standing silently by the windows, staring out to the waters. One brave soul, who dared to approach, reported feeling a cold hand brushing against their arm, but when they turned around, no one was there. Perhaps most chilling of all is St. James Cemetery, an old burial ground that holds the spirits of those long forgotten. It is said that at night, the faint sound of footsteps can be heard, following those who walk through the graveyard. The sounds of chains dragging over the ground and whispers of lost souls still searching for peace fill the night air, making even the bravest souls tremble with unease. 8. Hastings. Hastings, a charming seaside town with a bloody past, carries a reputation for being steeped in the supernatural. Known as the site of the Battle of Hastings in 1066, it is said that the very land is cursed by the blood of the fallen. The battlefield, now peaceful and quiet, comes alive on certain nights when the wind carries with it the sounds of distant battle cries. The clash of swords and the cries of dying warriors can be heard echoing through the air as the spirits of those who perished in the conflict relive their final moments. In the town centre, the old stone buildings and narrow alleys are rife with tales of lost souls. A particularly chilling legend is that of a bride in black seen walking the streets at night. Her face is obscured by a veil, and her mournful wails are said to be the result of her untimely death before her wedding. Some claim to have encountered her near the old church, where she is said to search in vain for her lost love, her spirit forever trapped in an endless cycle of sorrow. The sea itself is not free from the grasp of the supernatural. Fishermen speak of eerie lights appearing over the waters at night, and strange fogs that seem to roll in unexpectedly. One fisherman reported seeing a figure of a man staring out to sea, his expression one of hopeless longing, as though waiting for someone who will never return. 9. Canterbury. Canterbury, a city known for its stunning cathedral and religious history, holds a dark undercurrent that few dare to speak of. The Canterbury Cathedral, a place of worship and pilgrimage for centuries, is said to be haunted by the spirits of those who have suffered in the name of faith. The shadow of a monk in tattered robes is said to haunt the cathedral's hallowed halls, his mournful presence felt by those who visit in the quiet hours of the night. Visitors often report a strange chill in the air, and some claim to have heard faint whispers of ancient prayers drifting through the stone walls. Beyond the cathedral, Canterbury's narrow, twisting streets are filled with the spirits of its tragic past. The most famous of these is the ghost of a young girl brutally murdered in the city centuries ago. Her spirit is said to wander the streets near the city gates, calling out for help in a voice that is barely audible, only to vanish when someone turns to look. Her footsteps are often heard behind passers-by, though no one is ever there when they turn around. The River Stour, which runs through the heart of the city, is thought to conceal the souls of those who met a watery grave. Locals often speak of hearing splashes and strange currents in the river at night, as if something or someone is trying to escape the depths. Some believe that the river holds the spirits of the drowned, whose faces can sometimes be seen beneath the surface, staring up at the moonlit sky. 10 to Norwich. Norwich, with its medieval charm and winding cobblestone streets, has long been a city haunted by the echoes of its past. The imposing Norwich Castle, which once stood as a symbol of power, now stands as a reminder of the violence and bloodshed that occurred within its walls. It is said that the castle's cold stone halls are haunted by the spirits of those who perished within its confines. The most well-known of these is the ghost of a young woman, who is often seen wandering the castle grounds. Her mournful cries can be heard on the wind, and some have even reported feeling a heavy, suffocating presence as they approach the castle. But Norwich's ghostly activity doesn't end with the castle. The medieval streets are filled with forgotten souls, their spirits still trapped in the city they once called home. One particularly chilling tale comes from the old church of St. Peter Mancroft, where the ghost of a murdered priest is said to appear. His ghostly figure can be seen wandering the church at night, his eyes filled with sadness, forever searching for justice. Even the quiet, sleepy corners of the city are not immune to the supernatural. In the dead of night, the faint sound of chains dragging along the cobblestones can be heard, as if the ghosts of long-dead prisoners are still being dragged to their fate. 11. Bath. Bath, with its elegant Georgian architecture and famous Roman baths, is a city renowned for its history and beauty. However, beneath its refined exterior, a darker side lurks, filled with eerie tales and ghostly encounters. The ancient Roman baths, one of the most visited sites in the city, are said to be haunted by the spirits of Roman soldiers who once used the thermal waters. Visitors often report feeling a cold touch on their skin as they stroll around the ancient ruins, their footsteps echoing as if the soldiers themselves were walking beside them. The faint murmur of voices can sometimes be heard, as if the soldiers are conversing in languages long forgotten. In the stillness of night, the sensation of unseen hands brushing against visitors is said to be a reminder that the spirits of those who bathed here are never far away. Beyond the baths, the streets of Bath carry their own ghostly presence. One of the most chilling stories revolves around a woman in a white dress, often seen wandering the paths near the Royal Crescent, her form pale and translucent. It is said that she was once a young woman who fell in love with a man who was tragically killed before they could marry. Her spirit, tormented by this lost love, now roams Bath in search of her beloved, her anguished cries carried on the night air. Those who hear them are left with a deep sense of sadness and longing. The city's Victorian-era residents, too, have left their mark on Bath, and many of them are said to still haunt the town. People have claimed to see the figures of women in old-fashioned gowns, wandering the streets late at night, their faces twisted in sorrow or dread. The dark history of these forgotten souls still clings to the city, making Bath a place where past and present collide in ghostly encounters. 12. Stoke-on-Trent. Stoke-on-Trent, a city with a deep industrial heritage, has a haunting side that can be felt in its quiet, abandoned spaces. The once bustling pottery factories, which once rang with the noise of workers shaping clay, now sit silent and empty, but they are far from empty of spirits. The ghosts of factory workers who perished in tragic accidents still linger in the shadows of these abandoned buildings. Workers who have ventured into the old factories after hours report hearing the sound of footsteps behind them, accompanied by the eerie hum of machines starting up, even though no one else is present. Some have claimed to feel a cold, invisible hand brush against their shoulders, or their clothes tugged as if by an unseen force. One of the most unsettling stories comes from a young woman who met a tragic fate at one of the factories. Her spirit is said to haunt the old building where she worked, appearing near the windows as though staring out into a world she can no longer reach. Visitors to the site often feel a sense of dread, and the air becomes thick with an overwhelming sadness. In the nearby cemeteries, there are reports of restless souls who never left the place they labored so tirelessly. The spirits of workers who passed away from exhaustion or accidents now wander the city, never finding rest, their souls bound to the factories that once defined their lives. The atmosphere of these abandoned spaces is thick with their lingering presence, making Stoke-on-Trent a city where the past refuses to stay buried. 13. Cambridge. Cambridge, a city known for its world-renowned university, is a place where the pursuit of knowledge is intertwined with the mysteries of the supernatural. The ancient colleges, with their towering spires and ivy-clad walls, have seen centuries of history unfold within their hallowed halls. But beneath the scholarly pursuit of education, the streets of Cambridge hold stories of restless spirits and untimely deaths. The ghostly figure of a student who committed suicide under mysterious circumstances is said to haunt one of the college courtyards. Those who wander the area at night report seeing a shadowy figure walking silently behind them, only to disappear when they turn to face it. Others claim to see the figure of the student staring out from the windows of the college as though waiting for something or someone that will never arrive. Cambridge's libraries are another site of strange occurrences. The Bodleian Library, one of the oldest and most prestigious libraries in the world, is said to be haunted by the spirits of scholars who died under odd circumstances. Late-night visitors have reported hearing faint whispers coming from the stacks or seeing books shift on their own, as though the long-dead scholars are still attempting to impart their knowledge to those who walk through the library's aisles. In the churchyards of Cambridge, there are stories of a monk who was once buried beneath the ground, his spirit now roaming the city's churches. His ghost is said to appear to those who wander near the graves, his face obscured by a dark hood, forever bound to the place where he once sought redemption. 14. Gloucester. Gloucester, with its rich history stretching back to Roman times, is a city steeped in both beauty and tragedy. The grandeur of Gloucester Cathedral, with its soaring arches and stained glass windows, hides a dark secret. The spirits of monks and priests who once called the cathedral home are said to still walk its hallowed halls. Their footsteps can sometimes be heard echoing through the stillness of the night, and some claim to see a shadowy figure of a monk standing near the altar, his face hidden beneath the folds of his hood. This ghostly figure is often accompanied by an eerie sense of sorrow, as though the spirit is forever mourning something lost long ago. The narrow streets of Gloucester hold their own haunting secrets. One particularly chilling tale is that of a woman who was murdered in one of the city's oldest inns. Her spirit is said to still haunt the building, forever searching for her killer. Those who stay in the inn have reported hearing her footsteps pacing the hallways at night, and some have even heard her anguished cries as though she is reliving her final moments. The River Severn, which flows through Gloucester, is also a site of supernatural occurrences. Fishermen who work late into the night claim to see figures standing on the riverbank, staring out into the water with faces contorted in despair. Some believe these are the souls of those who drowned in the river's depths, their spirits forever bound to the dark waters. 15. London. London, a city with a rich and often violent history, is a place where the supernatural is as much a part of its landscape as its iconic landmarks. The Tower of London, one of the most notorious haunted sites in the city, holds the spirits of those who were imprisoned, tortured, and executed within its walls. Among the most famous of its ghosts is Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII, who was executed for treason. Her ghost is said to haunt the tower, often seen walking the grounds with her head tucked under her arm. The chilling sound of her footsteps can sometimes be heard echoing through the tower's corridors, followed by the soft rustling of her gown as she searches for peace. But the tower is not the only haunted location in London. The streets of the East End, where the infamous Jack the Ripper once roamed, are filled with stories of dark and restless spirits. People walking through these areas at night often report seeing a shadowy figure lurking in the alleys, as though the ghost of the killer himself still prowls the streets. The ghostly echoes of his victims are said to haunt the area, their anguished cries carried on the night wind. In Westminster Abbey, where many of England's most notable figures are buried. Some report seeing ghostly figures moving between the tombs, their faces obscured by shadows. The city's many parks and gardens are also home to restless spirits, with the ghosts of those long forgotten still lingering, their stories hidden beneath the layers of history that make up the fabric of London. As the city sleeps, it is said that the spirits of its past continue to walk its streets, never truly gone, but always present. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like and share so your friends can also uncover the mysterious secrets of these haunted cities in the UK. And feel free to tell me which city you're from. Maybe you have your own spooky tales to share.